Hi, so we're back. Sorry about that. We live in a rainforest, and that happens sometimes that we lose our connection, and that's the one of the very few downsides we have, and the upsides more than pay for that. So, um,
The
but
upside is we live in a rainforest.
yes, it's really wonderful.
So sorry about that.
Yeah, we'll try to leave off where we think we left off. So.
Yeah, we were talking about the time frame of now versus 40 years ago, and how 40 years ago, even if you would refer to my intuition, there'd be ridicule and joking that would occur as a response. Oh, your intuition told you something. And it's, 40 years later, or even 25 years later, it was becoming more acceptable. And certainly now it's, well, what's your gut say? That's the same as your intuition.
Yes.
So quantum healing or distance healing, as is probably more accurate, but we fall under the umbrella of quantum healing, I think it's going to be along a similar perhaps trajectory, because 40 years ago it was extremely odd, weird. There was so much negativity associated, and doubt, and occult, and not that occult is bad, but back then that was a negative word. It was even sometimes referred to as satanic. And so hopefully, or I know this is true. That's not the way it's referred to now. Certainly in the averages, and I think that that's just going to continue to change, especially with all the different types of research that Derek has referred to, where people who doubt, and I understand there's a lot of doubt out there, but people who doubt can then go to reference scientific paperwork. That's not me. That's not why I'm in it. I got into it because I just had mystical experiences that could not be denied. And the more I tried to deny it, the more the tap or the whisper in my ear became a thump, and then a slap, and then a push, and even harder. So there has been many times over the 40 years that I've been in this where I've gone, okay, what am I supposed to be looking at here? And I know I need to get out of my mind and listen to what's really happening energetically. And when I do that, often it just seems like magic that occurs. But it's really distance healing. And in the conversation that we're having now, there's other reasons that I've experienced that, but for now and for today, distance healing and getting out of your mind, or my mind, was like night and day in the experience. And it was the doorway that led me and my client into realms that were seemingly unbelievable.
So you need to bring up a lot of great points, and even though science is coming to the place where they're measuring it and they can prove that it works, that doesn't mean everybody who says they're a healer can actually heal. That doesn't prove. It just proves that this can work and that some people can do that. It doesn't prove the presence of God. It doesn't disprove the presence of God. It's just from, there's scientific place. They're showing there's energy that's working. And, as Nidra said, there's a lot of other reasons that we've got into this that drive us, that drove us and drove me from the very beginning. As many of you know my story and have read it, that it was a serious accident for me that woke my abilities. They were always there. I had always felt things. I mean, just going back to when I was doing a little research for this video, I was looking at some of the studies that were done, and some of the tests that were done, and I came across one that was just really fascinating because it's called The Secret Life of Plants, and it was published back in 1972 or something, and it proved at that time it was one of the first things that really kind of hit mainstream as far as these studies that proved that with thought plants could react whether they're next to you or whether they're far away. Now, why this really put a big smile on my face is because when I was 13 years old, I had read that book, and I actually, for my science class, I did a study. I copied that study and had plants in different parts of my houses and had different intentions with different plants. And, it feels bad, but one of them I was kept telling it, you shouldn't live, you're going to die, and life is horrible. I feel kind of bad about that, but that was part of the experiment that I had to do to see what would grow better. One, I was sending love intentions, and I was able to duplicate the experiment. So it was really kind of fascinating for me. So I've been involved, I've been interested in this for a long time, and to read that brought back some really sweet memories. But when I had that accident and scalding liquid and boiling hot metal flakes were on my face and my arms and starting to cause burn, and I had to I went into the house. A radiator had exploded in my face, and I went into the house and called Nidra down, and I said I need a healing because she was already a healer. I wasn't, and we sat down. By the look on her face, she was like, I could see that, oh, this is bad, because I hadn't seen my face yet. I could just see the welt starting to come up on my arms, and she sat me down and. She started to do healing, but she stopped almost immediately. And she said, I'm hearing there's an opportunity here for you. I could continue to try to heal you and to work on healing you. Or the opportunity that I'm hearing from Spirit is that you have the opportunity to learn how to heal yourself. And that was the beginning of my journey. I mean, as I said, the plant stuff, and I had a lot of other little things that have been driving me this direction. I wanted to learn this direction. I had a feeling that healing was a direction. I knew it was a direction I wanted to get into. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know how to do anything about it or what to do. And with her guidance, I was able to reduce the pain almost immediately, start to reduce the swelling, start to reduce the redness within minutes, within hours. Different things were happening. To this day, the only evidence that ever happened is this tiny little dot, a little scar I have on my wrist that is my reminder that I know that was part of me that said, leave that there, or that was my universe or Spirit saying, leave that there so you always remember this. So you always know that this was real, that this is what it could have looked like all over you. And through this healing, you change that. So there's just, excuse me. From there, it was 5 years of training. And she was a taskmaster back then. As sweet as you see her now, sweet. Back then, she was the taskmaster, and I would be woken up at 2:00 in the morning and say, "Okay, time to work." And it didn't matter if I had just gotten to bed at 12. I had to get up. I had to work on people. I had to learn how to work with energy in any situation. I had to learn how to work with it in trauma or in calm situations. I had to learn how to work from it hands-on. I learned how to do it at a distance. And my final passing, my final test, and this was after about 4.5 years, almost 5 years of doing this. My final test was we were driving home, and at that time we lived in a place called Idlewild, which is about a mile up in the mountains in a beautiful community in Southern California. And there's a very windy road to get up to it with a steep cliff on one side, and it would absolutely be life-threatening to go off that cliff. Although it's a road people go up all the time. But I had to, while I was driving up that road with the radio blasting, with Nidra purposely singing off tune, I had to work on healing somebody who was a very advanced, not only physical, but emotional and spiritual problems. I had to work on them at the same time. And Nidra has the ability to be able to see what I'm doing with other clients. But I had to be able to successfully do that, driving, listening to her, tuning all of that out, and being able to drive safe. And that was kind of my final pass before I was basically given the reins to go out on my own. So I was practicing on people for many years before that, but she was always looking over my shoulder in some way, whether it was physically there when I was doing hands-on, or whether it was energetically, or reviewing afterwards. That was my pretty intense training. It was I call that my master's degree training, because it was 24/7 for 5 years, and then since then, I continue to train myself. I continue to get mentored by her. If I have some problems, I bring it to her. So the energy healing really is about more about our gifts of being able to see energy, and to be able to feel energy, and to be able to tune in and not only with intention direct that towards somebody, but to be able to see what's happening, be able to feel what's happening within that person, because that's a really big part of I think being an effective healer, because anybody can have intention, anybody can pray or have intention for somebody to get better, and that's wonderful. All that stuff is great, and there's again studies to show that it's helpful. But to get to the degree that you're having the response of a healer that has been in the field a long time takes a lot of practice. And to be able to get to that place, a very important part of that is to be able to see or feel what's happening with your client. And that's part of what she taught me as well. And because then I was able to practice I was able to do different things and see, oh, that's even more effective. Oh, I can see the energy getting even stronger within that client, or it's flowing even more by changing a little something that I'm doing, or focusing on, oh, I need to focus on the emotional aspect because the physical is stagnant right now and there's something emotional happening, and being able to tune into that. Or on a spiritual level to see what that might be, whether it might be a karmic pattern that's affecting things. There's so many different levels and so many different things that I've learned, and that first 5 years of training was absolutely invaluable to me being able to do what I can do, to me being able to have the effectiveness that I have with clients, to be able to have a 90% effectiveness with clients is really profound. Now, as I tell all of you, I don't have a 90% effectiveness on healing anybody with anything. I have to look and see, is this something I can work with? Is this something I'm effective with? There's lots of things that I'm not very effective with in the healing field. There's lots of areas that my work just doesn't seem to do much. So after all of these years, I pretty much know what that energy pattern looks like, or those different energy patterns. So when I encounter them, I don't take that person on as a client, because I know I'm not going to be that effective with them. But there's certain patterns that I am very effective with, and I've learned over the years of how to work with those patterns. And so those are all my clients, because I wouldn't take you if I didn't see that I could be effective with those patterns. So that's been part of the practice over the years, and that's part of the really the wonderful aspect of being able to feel and see the energy within my client, to be able to see that things are actually improving, or they're not, and why aren't they? What's going on? And to be able to do that from a distance, as we talked about, is for me just as effective as doing it hands-on. I started out hands-on. That was easier to begin with, but then as I became proficient at that, that's when Nidra started helping me to learn how to do it from a distance. So let me pause and see what you'd like to share.
I think this would be a good time to elaborate on the word healing or healer. And that's become more and more the norm to reference a practitioner who is in this field. But really, for us, for the two of us, we're really healer facilitators.
Yeah.
And there are people out there who literally say they are healers. And even though we might we do fall under the generic term of healer, more specifically, we're healer facilitators. Now, here's why. Because when a client comes to us, we're not deciding for ourselves and for them what needs to happen in their body, in their mind, in their soul, in their heart, in their emotions. We don't do that. That's not what we do. As facilitators for healing, we're talking to our client to find out what is their goal. And then, given that goal, this is simplistically put, but it's important. Given that goal, we communicate with their body, mind, intelligence, with their higher self. I know that's a big, how do you do that? But in general, and we'll get into that probably in another conversation. That'd be a great conversation. In general, we're communicating with their body, mind, intelligence, and we're walking to that door. Let's say it's a door. We're knocking on that door. Body, mind, intelligence opens it, and we show them an authorization form that says, okay, so Kathy has said this is what she really wants to experience, instead of going through a healing crisis. Whenever she smells perfume, whenever she smells hairspray, whenever, what's another example?
Healing crisis would be whenever she encounters her family that connects with
that's a good one.
Some old memory.
So that's emotional / mental.
Yeah.
And then the hairspray and the cologne is actually a physical trigger. So it could be any of those things. And we're showing the body, mind, intelligence of Kathy that Kathy has sent us. We're not barging into your door and saying, okay, you guys have to leave, you guys stay. We're bringing in this group of cavalry, and we're changing everything because this is the way it needs to be. So I'm really exaggerating, of course, and I do have respect, great respect for healers. What I'm wanting to do is elaborate more about what a healer facilitator does. So we don't do that. We go in and we talk at the door and say, this is what she wants to experience. And then the body mind intelligence basically says, well, we'll see. Let's try this. I can see that that's Kathy's signature. We'll try it. And so we just stand there and hold the note, basically, while the body mind intelligence of Kathy shifts her. Now, that whole thing of, well, we'll see. That's really her signature. We'll give it a try. That's important too, because that's why typically, and there have been miraculous cases, of course, but that's why we come back and we have another session and we have another session and we continue to knock on the door. And sometimes it's the statement of what Kathy wants is tweaked a little, and we just hold that note and the body mind intelligence reads it and verifies that is Kathy's signature. We'll give it a try. I don't know. That's not how she's been experiencing life, but if she says so, we'll give it a try. We have to continue to keep on holding that note and coming back as a facilitator until there's a real shift, until the body mind intelligence says, oh, it looks like she's actually holding this note. It looks like she wants it.
Now, to go a little bit deeper than that, because as Nidra said, this is really kind of surface level talking about this. To go deeper, when I'm communicating with the body mind intelligence and it's starting to change, your body actually shows me where to be in your body. And so when it shows me based on what you're wanting, it shows me, oh, there's stuff, there's density in the chest. And it shows me for my intention to be there. And then I'm holding all my intention really where it's showing me until that shifts. So I'm not going into that area that I've been shown that's kind of stuck and hard and unsticking it. I'm going in there and holding the intention of what your goal is and what the change is. And as I'm there in that area of your body, and your body mind intelligence is showing me that area, and it's there changing it. We're holding that note until your body mind intelligence really gets it, and it just shifts. It just starts lightening up or starts flowing at a more flowing pattern. But something happens, and then it's like it's done. It's done. Now, that doesn't mean you're healed. It means to the degree that it's ready to shift.
Necessarily healed.
Yeah, necessarily.
It could be healed.
But at the very least, it means that's all for this moment in that area. We probably will need to come back, as Nidra said many times. And then often it'll show me another area. And then we'll go to that area, and we'll be in that area.
And that's what we call co-creating.
Yes.
That's a co-creation. The body mind intelligence is directing Derek to, okay, hold the note here with me. And I don't mean as the body, let's pretend the body mind intelligence is speaking. I don't mean for you to come in here and hold a note with me. You just stand there at the door, but you focus on this area. So Derek is listening to that, and he's holding the note. Now, it's not about, well, why do you want me to hold the note there? It's about this co-creation that's occurring that's really awesome. And it's mystical and it's magical to us. And perhaps someday in the future, it won't be mystical and magical. And perhaps there will be scientists who will say, this is why that works. But for now, it's mystical and it's magical to us. And it has been that way for me for 40 years. So that's a little bit more of an explanation. Thank you.
Yeah.
About that. I'm not sure how much more time we have.
We're open.
We are?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Then,
While I got her, I'm going to keep her as long as we can keep her here. So we've got up to 45 minutes more.
really?
But we can, when we're done, we're done.
Okay. Because we're not counting the earlier video that
Well,
the rainforest cut
because
off.
I've told people anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes.
Okay.
So-
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, give me a second. So we're talking about healing facilitation of a client and how that can, and I think you can grok that different people or individuals will receive whatever they receive uniquely to them. And that has to do with their body, mind, intelligence and their life journey, their authentic potential of what they've come here to do, their emotional pain that maybe they're not ready to let go of, or they're holding on to tight. There's a lot of reasons why people receive the facilitation the way they do uniquely. And so that's why Derek has like a minimum amount of time that he asks for you to work with him, because we don't know how fast or how long it's going to take for any given individual until we start working with them and start delving deeper into, well, what's causing the blockage to flow. Can you, body, mind, intelligence, higher self, or Kathy, can you show me or tell me what that is? Because the more you can have your insights, it's going to help you progress. It's going to help you come back to a homeostasis. It's going to help you improve your situation. Let's pause for a second. I want to jump to tapping, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And then I want to talk a little bit about my life journey and why distance healing and quantum healing has been a path for me. But in terms of tapping, there are different tools that you can use for yourselves when you're not in a treatment with Derek, to help further yourself or help shift yourself out of something that seems familiar and looks like it's going to go into perhaps a crisis or a great discomfort, and in your history, in your life history, you're kind of recognizing signs and feeling more and more uncomfortable. Well, there's different tools that you can use. One of the tools is tapping, and it's an old format. I started doing it in the 80s, and we didn't have a term for it. We actually, I'm going to correct myself. Actually, I would say that I got into it through an energy worker who is a licensed chiropractor. And chiropractors, certainly in the 80s and 70s, and perhaps the 90s, But chiropractors, the ones, at least half of the ones I knew, were really into energy work. And they wanted to explore how to work with energy in the body in more of a licensed way. And so some of the ones I knew got into chiropractor school. And one of them found a means to tap certain ways on the body, and it became like a signing with the body, and the body would, through intention, actually, would recognize what the practitioner was asking, and through kinesiology, it would say, yes, you're on the right track. No, you're not. And I got into it that way because I worked at this chiropractic office, and I was the spiritual healer back then in the 80s. And so we would work together. And I thought it was fascinating how she would code and tap into the body, and the body would respond to it. And so when I left there after a couple years, I just continued to use tapping as a methodology with intention to communicate with the body and say, I don't want to experience what I'm experiencing. What I want is this instead. And it's been an incredibly useful tool. I know that, I believe it was the 90s that one or more groups introduced it more formally into the world. And I think it's called EFT.
That's one of the forms. Yeah,
so
one of the terms.
That's not from where I come from, but from all that I've looked at and read, which hasn't been a lot, but certainly over the years, I've run into this, and it looks very similar. So what I want to say about tapping is that next week, right?
Next week,
Monday.
Next Monday, the 9th.
The 9th, I'm coming on again with Derek.
Right.
And what we'd like to give to those of you who come on that day live, if you want, is for me to give you a prescription specifically about you and tapping and how to use tapping, and a statement. Prescription is a statement that you use with the tapping and where to tap. And that would be our gift to you to help you through the holiday season. So is there something you want to add to that?
I just want to, just to be clear, she's going to tune into you energetically live on the call. And
if you want.
You
can still be on the call. You can choose to pass. You don't have to have this.
Yes.
But if this is an option, go ahead.
And provide a very detailed, or not, may or may not be very detailed, but very specific tapping code that you can use for yourself. So this is not just a generic thing for everybody. She's going to be doing this very individualistic for those that are on the call and who would like that.
Okay, so thank you. So is it okay for me to share a little bit about my story?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So why does it work for me, and why has it been a part of my journey? I have to jump to about the middle of my timeline in this journey of about 40 years. And about that time, about 22 years ago, I collapsed in a big shopping mall complex parking lot with Derek by my side. And over that following week, I turned yellow. My hair started falling out. Yeah, I mean, my skin was yellow. My eyes were yellow. My hair started falling out. I was extremely weak. Derek worked on me a lot, and basically he kept me alive for a couple months with his work until I finally said, and he was somewhat downtrodden. He's not a downtrodden guy, but he was somewhat downtrodden about why isn't she getting better. I wasn't feeling pain, but I was very, very ill. And I finally said to him, I'm not really healing, but I'm very comfortable, but I'm not really healing because I'm not that interested in living. So I know that's a long story. I'm sure you know there's a long story behind that. But that's what I said to him. And in short order, one morning we awoke, and energetically we knew I was going. And you got out of bed, and there were beings around the bed, and
clearly beings that had come to support her crossover.
And
whether you call them angels or spirits or guides or whatever name you give them, there were
Derek
a bunch of them there.
Derek was not thrilled about these beings being there because he had his own interpretation of what that meant, and he wanted them to be gone. And I remember watching him as I was like drifting, and watching him stand around my bed going,
"Go away! Go away!"
It wasn't funny then.
It's funny now, but
if I had the energy, I would have laughed. But basically, I went through the near-death experience, they call it, where you go through this tunnel, and it's all dark.
While she was going through that, her body
died.
She died. She had stopped breathing. I was going into mourning at that time while she's sharing what she's sharing now.
So I went through this dark, it was all black except for this pinhole of light. And it boggled my mind. Why isn't the rest of this tunnel light? Because when you have a light, it lightens everything, but it was just this pinhole of light. Anyway, so I get over to the other side. This is a long story, so I'm shortening it. I get over to the other side, and it is blissful, people. There's no word. There's no word to describe how blissful it was, because all the worry, the pain, the discomfort, it just all fell away. And I was there in this incredible oneness and knowingness that I had never ever felt before. And then I'm going to jump to the important part for you is, I don't even know if this part is important for you, but anyway, I heard you have to go back. And I was like, no, I don't want to go back. So I was literally trying to negotiate. I should just stay. I mean, my body's a wreck. And I was told what I had to do. And I came back to a messed up body. And my eyes were open, and all of a sudden I saw Derek walking into the room. I guess he had walked out, but I saw him walk into the room, and his face was down. I mean, looking down, and his eyes were looking down, and I couldn't hardly talk. So I was just watching him until waiting for him to look up at me. And he slowly looked up at me, and I just said, "They sent me back." And my husband did.
Yes!
He did that.
Exactly what I did.
And it wasn't like the movies, because I didn't just spring out of bed or even slowly get up and walk. I didn't do any of that. My body was shocked. And it was a good 18 months where my husband had to help me dress, feed me, help me wash. He did everything for me. So I went from that to being healed. And there's no explanation for that. And I've had several medical emergencies over the last 20 years, which included being flown by, what's it called?
Life flight.
Life flight twice. And also being diagnosed with stroke.
Now, let me just say, flown by life flight, because where we live on this island is one of the outer islands. And although we do have a hospital here, they don't have all the major facilities that the hospitals on Oahu, which is the main island, even though it's smaller than this island, but it's the main island, has. So when things are really bad, they fly people from this island to one of the big hospitals over there.
And it really has to be a life and death situation, because you can imagine it's very expensive. So I've had those experiences. I've been seen by perhaps arguably one of the top, if not the top, cardiologists on the island who did the brain dye thing in my brain,
and imaging, yes.
And then we sat down. Derek and I
the
sat down.
The neurologist did that one, yeah.
Neurologist, and sat down with Derek and myself, and he pulled out the X-rays and the coloring of the brain and pointed to an area, and he said, "That's where you had the stroke. You have had a stroke. You need to be on all of these pills, or some version of it, as it needs to be modified, for the rest of your life." And those were scary times.
Yeah, there were, during one of those times, she was completely paralyzed on one full side of her body, and she couldn't talk. She could barely say. I mean, she could say maybe a sentence, but it was confusing. If you pointed at a clock on the wall and asked her what that was, she would say laptop. She couldn't connect what was going on in her mind with her mouth and what that was. Wasn't connecting. She couldn't walk. She couldn't go to the bathroom. She couldn't get up. And that was another miraculous recovery, because she couldn't even read a sentence. Even after the first week, she could barely read a sentence. It took time for her to heal and for my work to be effective. It probably took months for her to come back from that. But the initial shifting happened within 3 days, and most miraculous. Within 3 days, she was up walking and talking again, and walking out of the hospital when they said she was going to be spending 2 months in the hospital in recovery and therapy.
Yeah. So yes. So
yeah.
I've healed from a lot of things, and a lot of those things were serious, and a few of them were critical. And I've talked to medical professionals who saw me during the time and later said to me, I don't know why you're alive. So that's a long story, and I'm trying to shorten it to say to you, I have an understanding of how hard it can be to navigate through pain and illness and disease. I have an understanding of it. I have 22 plus years of an understanding of it. And so when you're talking to either one of us, it's not book learned, it's life learned. And we have a lot of compassion about what you're going through. And when we say it's possible you can heal, we really mean that. We really mean that. And the upshot is, of all the things that I've gone through, especially the strokes, when I think it's been 5 or 6 years, my medical provider, which is Kaiser Insurance, sent me to get an MRI and, I don't know, CAT scan. I don't know what. Anyway, they did things.
Did all the imaging.
They did all the imaging. And that's how much I know about Western medicine. But I'll go. But anyway, they did all of that, and then they sent me to a neurologist, and he put it on his flat screen and looked at it quietly and asked me some questions. And then he turned the screen to me, and he put his hand towards it, and he said, well, this is what a healthy brain looks like. And he didn't have any explanation besides that. So
it was clear to me, because I was there with her, that he didn't believe she ever had a stroke. He said, basically, it doesn't show that you've ever had a stroke.
And I guess that's impossible.
The way he worded it and his energy behind it was, they misdiagnosed you. Now, I was there. I know what I saw.
And we know what I went through.
And we know what the records are at the hospital.
So, and had we not been there together, had we not both seen it, experienced it, observed it, I would be doubting myself too.
But that's how much healing can work, because even from an imaging standpoint of her brain, the evidence that neurologists say will be there for your life, that there'll be a section of your brain that will see that there's something wrong with it, and the reason you get better is because you work around that. Your brain eventually finds new pathways if you do get better. That wasn't there. That was gone. It wasn't a matter of finding new pathways. That whole area healed. So, yeah, I think that's a good place to start to come to a resting point for this, and just hopefully give you hope, give you inspiration that what we're talking about, we know what we're talking about, at the very least from our own experience. And we know from decades of working with individuals that healing can be very unique, or is in fact unique to each person. So there's a lot of territory there that may need to be addressed. And sometimes it's frustrating for you because it takes longer. When it does take longer, it can be frustrating. You can start to doubt, is this working, and will it work? And we just want to say, hang in there.
And we'll have some suggestions. I'm going to be more active next year. So we'll have more suggestions for you and support for you on how to support yourself as you work with Derek. And I want to say, this guy's the real deal. Mm-hmm. He's the real deal. Yes, he went through 5 years of nearly 24 hours a day of training, because I was a taskmaster, and I just take this so seriously. And I take responsibility for training someone seriously. And even after the 5 years, he had 3 or 4, maybe even 5 years of what some people might call residency or mentorship. So, it's been a long journey and a dedicated one. And Derek is doing what he loves to do.
Yes.
He does it all the time. And I think that you found a good guy to help you. So keep on going, keep on reaching. Don't give up. Breathe into your body. Get grounded every day. Drink lots of good water. We'll talk about that. And look into supplements. We'll talk about that in another call too.
Thank you all for joining us or watching this. If you're watching this later, again, I'm Derek Lanakila. This is Nidra Lanakila. You can find us at derek.com. That's DAERICK.com. Or you can find us at volcanoislandhaven.com. We look forward to talking to you again.
Sending you lots of aloha from the big island.
Aloha.
Aloha.